Today's story involves a very unusual set of circumstances. I was working in Bakersfield. I believe it was 1980. I had not yet moved on to Fresno. I was working at KUZZ and KKXY, which is the FM, the Buck Owens stations in Bakersfield. And working for Buck was a real dream. It really was. I mean, well, it was a good crew. There was a lot of good people there. I still have good relations with them, and of course, Buck has passed on, and so is his sister Dorothy, who was the general manager of the radio stations. But we covered under Mark Howe's direction. Mark Howe was the news director, still a good friend of mine, and Paul Lowe, who later worked at KFWB, and I worked with him somewhat later on in my career. Where the three of us were the news team there, and under Mark's direction, we covered everything that was newsworthy, and that was we covered fires, we covered fatals, that kind of stuff, as well as just regular news and heavy duty news and the local politics, city council, county board of supervisors, races for Congress, things like that. And we were the number one news team in the area, bar none. No one came close. Even when they tried to put an all news station in the market, it didn't do what we did. So, and they had a bigger staff. So we really did, but we were mainly a music station. In Kern County, we had a pager system, and the pager would go off. And if we wanted to go out and cover, actually roll to the scene of something, we weren't supposed to really call the cops when they paged us, but it was a media pager system that went out to every media outlet in the county. And basically, what we did, it told us where something was happening, fire, murder, that kind of stuff, and we could go there. But we weren't supposed to call. It was just a heads up to go if you want to go roll and be at the scene. Well, I got a call. I wasn't supposed to go to work till like 9 or 10, but I got a call before that. And Mark said, look, the pager just went off. We had a house fire in West Bakersfield. So I went out, I covered the fire, and it was a house fire. Nobody got hurt, but it was a typical house fire. People's lives were destroyed. We interviewed the fire department and so on and so forth. Went back, filed the tape, and everything was good. Then we were told from the sheriff's department that they were going to do a controlled burn of two Ryder trucks, those big 24-foot trucks full of marijuana. It was confiscated marijuana. They were going to take it out into the fields and they were going to stack it and burn it. And so we thought that'd be a cool story to cover. And then all the media went after that. I mean, that was kind of crazy. All the media, local TV stations, and there were three of them, as well as local radio and newspaper. Everybody went out there. And they dug a big pit and they dumped the first truckload of marijuana in there, and then they were going to do the second one. So we were there for the first, didn't have to be there for the second, but they got us pretty close. Well, you can imagine what happened. Personally, I've never smoked marijuana in my life, just never did. Um, we were pretty close and the wind shifted. So here all this pot smoke is going up in the air and coming right at us. Well, to tell you the truth, it made me a little woozy. I didn't get the munchies. At least I'm thinking back, maybe I might have, because I went back and had lunch. But it was amazing. I mean, it was just truly amazing to see all this marijuana just going up in smoke. And it took a couple of hours to have it all done, and we only stayed for the first half. So that was the second fire I covered. So I went to the radio station, did my afternoon air shift, and as I was leaving, the pager went off again. And this would have been about probably 6, 7 o'clock, I guess, and in the evening. And so the pager went off again. There was a commercial building fire, and so I went out and covered that. And these are the days it really wasn't overtime, right? You had a salary and whatever, how many hours you did. It's the way news works, and at least did at that time. And so I went out, I covered that. It was like, hey, boy, I got to go home and change my clothes. I just smell like smoke. I've been to 3 fires in one day. So I went home, had dinner, went to bed, and about 11 o'clock that night, the pager went off again. There was a fire in Delano, which was about 25, 30 miles north of Bakersfield, the end of Kern County. And it was a house fire, and there were fatalities. So it was one I had to go cover. I couldn't just blow it off and say, let them do the call the cops in the morning, that kind of stuff. It was one that I literally had to go to. So I got in my car, got dressed, drove in my car the 25, 30 miles to Delano, got there. And as it turns out, it was an old 1 or 2 bedroom frame home, old wooden home. I mean, built probably, this was 1980, probably built before 1925. And it went up like a matchstick. I mean, it was just gone. Well, there was an old couple who lived there in their 90s. They were a pioneer couple. I don't remember their names, and I've tried to look it up. But they were a pioneer couple. They had been early founders of some area there in Delano, and they were well known in the community. And they had, when the fire broke out, they tried to get out, and they couldn't, so they went to the bathroom and got into the bathtub and huddled in the bathtub and were overcome with smoke and passed out, and they died there in the flames. I was walking around doing a stand-up, in other words, recording into my tape recorder the scene and everything. And we hadn't had all the details yet. We just knew it was a double fatal. And in the middle of what I was doing, taking my tape recorder, the wind shifted. And it shifted from the other side of the house, over the house, and to me. And if you've never smelled what some people describe as the sweet smell of burning flesh, and that sounds a gross way to describe it, it just is. It's a different smell that you recognize right away. And if you've never smelled that, it can be very disturbing. And fortunately, I had. Unfortunately, that I had. And when the wind shifted, right in the middle of my stand-up, I had to stop. I recognized what it was, and it just kind of overwhelmed me. And I had to stop. I walked around to the other side of the house, started over, and did what I was doing. Went back to the radio station and put the stuff together. And by this time, it was like 2:00 in the morning when I was finished. And 4 fires in one day. I didn't need to cover another fire in the rest of my life, as far as I was concerned, but I obviously did. But to end with that one was just a lot. And it takes a lot out of you. And this situation is that, it's something I'll never forget that day. It's a day that I remember. I don't remember the street names and that type of thing. It's not important. But the fact that it was 4 fires in one day, and the final one being what it was, and then having the pot fire earlier in the day, and then the 2 kind of run-of-the-mill, if I can say it that way, house fire and a commercial fire. It was just an unusual day, and a story that I felt I probably should tell. Talk to you again with another story tomorrow. Thanks again for joining me.